All right, let's dive into one of the most chaotic and hilarious one-act plays you'll ever read. Anton Chekhov's The Proposal. This is a story that's supposed to be about a marriage proposal, but as you'll see, it goes spectacularly wrong. We're going to unpack all the comedy, the chaos, and what it really tells us about pride and property.
So what kind of play are we dealing with here? First off, it's a one-act play, which is just a fancy way of saying the whole story happens in one location in one continuous scene. But more importantly, it's a farce. Think of a farce as comedy turned up to 11. It's all about absurd situations, physical humor, and characters who are just completely over the top. So yeah, get ready for some chaos.
And the mind behind all this madness? The brilliant Anton Chekhov. He was a true master of Russian literature, famous for finding both the humor and the tragedy in everyday life. He's considered one of the greatest short story writers of all time, and he brings that same sharp eye for human foolishness right onto the stage in this play.
Now the title, The Proposal, seems pretty straightforward, right? But here's the genius of it. The central irony of the entire play is that the proposal itself is constantly forgotten. Our characters get so wrapped up in their own pointless arguments that they completely lose sight of the one reason they're all in the room together.
The entire play takes place in a single room, the drawing room of Stepan Chubukov's house. And this isn't just some random backdrop. You should think of it like a pressure cooker. By trapping these three incredibly argumentative people together with absolutely no escape, Chekhov just cranks up the tension and the comedy with every single minute that passes.
So let's meet the three people at the heart of all this chaos. Their clashing personalities are basically the engine that drives every funny moment and every single conflict. We've got the suitor, Ivan Lomov, the object of his so-called affection, Natalya Stepanovna, and her father, Stepan Chubukov. First up is Ivan Lomov. He's a wealthy landowner, but he is a walking bundle of anxiety. His defining trait is that he's a total hypochondriac. He's constantly worried about his health, always complaining about heart palpitations and other weird ailments. This anxiety, you'll see, is a huge source of the play's physical comedy.
Next, we have Natalya Stepanovna, Chubukov's 25-year-old daughter. Now, she's well-educated and a great housekeeper. But don't let that fool you for a second. She is incredibly strong-willed, outspoken, and she will argue about anything and everything. If there's a fight to be had, you can bet Natalya will not be the one to back down.
And finally, there is Natalya's father, Chubukov. He's another landowner who, at first, seems totally overjoyed at the idea of this marriage. But he very quickly shows his true colors. He's got a short temper, he's greedy, and he loves to jump into arguments, basically just adding fuel to every single fire.
Okay, let's get into the plot. The play kicks off with Lomov showing up at the Chubukov's house. He's dressed to the nines. We're talking a formal evening jacket and white gloves. This immediately makes Chubukov suspicious. He's thinking, where is this guy going? Is he on his way to a party?
When Lomov actually tries to explain why he's there, he's a total nervous wreck. His anxiety is through the roof, he can barely get the words out straight. And when he does, he frames the proposal not as some romantic gesture, but as a purely practical, almost business-like decision. He says he's 35 and he needs a quiet and regular life. Love? Yeah, that's not really part of the equation for him.
Chubukov, who at first thinks Lomov is there to borrow money, is completely shocked, and then absolutely ecstatic when he hears the real reason. His reaction is completely over the top. He hugs Lomov, calls him my angel, and says he's been wanting this match for ages. It really reveals just how badly he wants this financially beneficial deal to happen.
And this is where the whole proposal goes completely off the rails. While Lomov is trying to build up to the big question, he just casually mentions that his land, a place called Oxen Meadows, touches their property. And that single offhand comment is the spark that ignites the first massive argument.
Natalya immediately fires back, insisting that the meadows belong to her family. Just like that, the proposal is completely forgotten. Both of them dig their heels in, each one absolutely refusing to give an inch. Their shared stubbornness just completely hijacks the entire reason for Lomov's visit.
So, when Chubukov walks in, does he calm things down, play peacemaker? Not a chance. He jumps right into the fight, fiercely taking Natalya's side. All civility is just thrown out the window as he starts shouting and even calls Lomov a grabber.
All the stress from this screaming match becomes way too much for our anxious Lomov. He starts complaining about a horrible palpitation in his heart and says his leg has gone numb. He is completely overwhelmed and he stumbles out of the house, with the proposal now a distant memory amidst all the chaos.
But the madness doesn't stop there. After Natalya finds out why he was really there, she panics and has him brought back. You'd think they'd finally get on with it, right? Nope. A brand new fight erupts. This time, it's all about whose hunting dog is better, Lomov's dog Guess or Natalya's dog Squeezer.
The argument quickly spirals into this incredibly detailed and passionate defense of their dogs. Lomov is bragging about Guess's pedigree, while Natalya insists her dog, Squeezer, is a way better hunter. It is the perfect showcase of their competitive, stubborn personalities, just applied to the most ridiculous subject imaginable.
Believe it or not, the fight over the dogs becomes even more heated and more personal than the one about the land. They completely lose all self-control, just screaming at each other and trading insults, all over whose pet is better. It's just absurd.
And, well, the result is pretty predictable at this point. The intense excitement is too much for Lomov to handle. His anxiety goes into overdrive, he claims his heart is bursting, and he dramatically collapses into a chair. This moment is pure comic exaggeration, a classic move in a farce.
The panic is immediate. Seeing Lomov just slumped over and motionless, Chubukov and Natalya genuinely believe he has died. The irony here is just so thick. The man who came to propose a new life with Natalya now appears to have lost his own, right there in their drawing room.
It's only in this moment of sheer panic that Chubukov finally blurts out the real reason for Lomov's visit. He came to propose marriage. Well, Natalya's attitude does a complete 180. Her anger just vanishes, and it's replaced by this desperate, hysterical demand for her father to bring him back to life so she can marry him. So they frantically give Lomov some water, and they actually manage to bring him around. He's totally dazed, completely confused, and has no idea what just happened. Seizing the moment, Natalya and Chubukov rush to get the proposal done and dusted before another disaster can strike.
So in a complete flurry of chaos, Chubukov quickly shoves his daughter's hand into Lomov's, declares them engaged, and yells for champagne. The whole thing is rushed, it's forced, and it's completely, utterly devoid of any real affection or romance. It's a transaction, pure and simple.
But do they live happily ever after? Oh, absolutely not. The second the proposal is settled, they immediately start arguing again about whose dog is better. The play literally ends mid-argument, showing us that, deep down, nothing has really changed at all.
So, let's break it down. Why is all this chaos so funny? Well, Chekhov is using some classic comedy tools. There's exaggeration with the characters' totally wild reactions. There's repetition, like Lomov constantly complaining about his health. And there's situational humor. I mean, the sheer absurdity of arguing this fiercely during a marriage proposal is just hilarious.
This specific style of humor has a name. It's called a farce. A farce relies on really absurd situations, characters behaving illogically, and a big dose of physical comedy. Lomov's two dramatic collapses are perfect examples of this. They turn his anxiety into a running visual gag.
But underneath all that laughter, Chekhov is actually exploring some pretty serious themes. He's making fun of how, for the wealthy landowners in his time, marriage was often just an economic transaction, a way to combine properties. The play is a really sharp critique of greed and, most of all, the destructive power of ego and pride.
So the central irony is that the main goal, to form a peaceful union through marriage, is constantly being destroyed by the characters' inability to stop fighting. They want to come together, but their egos just make it impossible. Chekhov uses this ridiculous comedy to shine a big spotlight on just how absurd their priorities are.
So, what's the big takeaway here? What's Chekhov's message? He seems to be highlighting the absolute meaninglessness of fights that are just fueled by ego. The play suggests that for any relationship to actually work, things like understanding and tolerance are way more valuable than winning an argument over a tiny patch of land or a hunting dog.
Okay, time for your exam focus. When you're asked to write about Lomov's character, the key points to hit are his crippling anxiety and hypochondria, his argumentative nature, and his very practical, unromantic view of marriage as just a way to get a quiet and regular life.
And for Natalya and Chubukov, remember their key traits. Natalya's headstrong, possessive, and has a super short temper. She starts both of the main fights. Chubukov is dramatic and two-faced. Instead of being a peacemaker, he's an instigator, pushing the marriage because it benefits him. And remember to use key lines from the play to back up your points. Natalya's defiant "oxen meadows are ours, not yours" perfectly shows her possessiveness. Chubukov dismissing his daughter's feelings by calling her a lovesick cat shows his purely transactional view of the marriage. And of course, Lomov's constant complaints about his palpitations perfectly capture his absurd, anxious nature.
Finally, let's wrap up with the key takeaways for your exams. Be ready to talk about how the play criticizes the institution of marriage among the wealthy class of its time. You'll want to use keywords like farce, satire, and irony. Make sure you can connect those ideas to the big themes: property, pride, and marriage as a contract. If you can explain how the comedy is used to deliver this deeper message, you'll have a fantastic analysis.